this image of torture, but also with the white wire. And you can never see a real iPod ad again without doing a double take. Is this a real one or is this the political one? It's just brilliantly how it, the political statement hooks into your head. But I showed these 35 kids one of the posters. Now the iPod ad had gone through some changes in the 3 years. It wasn't, it was much, not the same stark black and white or black and bright color. Every kid recognized iPod, even though iPod wasn't written on the poster anywhere. None recognized or could identify Abu Ghraib. None.
Of course not.
Of course, no. But it's still shocking to me because it's only 3 years before. I was like, I still get shocked.
But that's the gap I'm talking about.
Yes.
That's precisely the gap I'm talking about.
Yes.
I don't.
Yes.
There would be a moment where it was very easy to be upset, even if you're disseminating information in your classes by which to help offer more than one point of view on any given subject, right? It doesn't really matter what it is. I don't think it's a question of left, right, and center anymore, because it seems like an obsolete means by which to look at who we are as individuals and the world that we function in. So if someone didn't know about, say, something as horrific as for our age group or those within an age group of the effects of the Vietnam War and what took place there, you go, how could you possibly not know what just took place a couple decades ago, much less 3 years ago? So that at some point seems somewhat upsetting, because you go, well, we should be teaching the same as, why do we not show our Jewish children images of the Holocaust? Okay, why are we not teaching our children about their own history? Okay, I got over being upset about that because I realized that it wasn't that the students were at fault or that they weren't interested. It wasn't that we didn't have the politics by which to want to deliver the information. But the paradigm shift is so great. It is the gap. And when I'm not talking about generational gap, I'm not talking about age, I'm talking about the technological gap that has been created, and the globalization of sets of information that are taken for granted as being fact are at this point unchallengeable. Because in order to challenge them, in order to disrupt that flow of information, you have to be able to approach the information in a manner that is equally as accessible and digestible as it is. You look at someone who does, I could probably pick anybody in the room, the language of texting, that's a form of English, but it might as well come back down to it's going to be a new language.
I still need interpretation for a lot of it.
Because we cannot deny its existence. And a lot of people go, well, I can't understand it. We can't understand it because you're not paying attention to what information is being disseminated. So it seems to me that we're in the same dilemma. So, for example, I know that people here are supposed to be using their computers to take notes and do all these things. I know for a simple fact that I just was watching somebody look at recipes on some kind of gardening, and so we can no longer make any of this. I guess my point is, you cannot make the assumptions about what information is going to be important, that was important to us, that was seminal to our formation of our intellect, of our being, of our politics, of our ability to interact in the world. We can no longer assume that set of information or values has anything to do with the set of values, and that is not a left-right center issue for me.
No,
there's something else. Excuse me. There's another. The white elephant in the room here we've not yet described. I think.
Well, I also think that again, using the Vietnam War, we would eat dinner with the Vietnam War on the TV. The war was brought into everybody's home every day, all day. Not since, they learned from that, and, George Bush, you have the photographers and the journalists are embedded which means they're not independent. They only print what, if they don't print what, if the government doesn't like what they print, they're thrown out. They have no access. So that's censorship. They won't allow photographs of the body bags coming home.
Yeah. I
You know,
remember that.
government censorship.
What if
In the
we
name
do,
of morale.
what if we do, like with Nissan, when is freedom, when is there too much freedom? I
I'll
mean,
let you know.
you know,
I've
when,
never experienced it.
well, I don't know. Perhaps we do experience it here in the United States. Perhaps that there's a sense of entitlement of freedom due to a complete misunderstanding of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The fact that we use a body of language that constitutional scholars argue over, you know, in the 21st century. I'm not sure that we should be using the same rules and regulations that we were using at the formation of this country. I'm not saying get rid of them. I'm not saying that they need to be, you know, amended in such a way that they change the very nature of what constitutional government is. But Jesus Christ, I mean, if you had an Apple computer from 5 years ago and you have an you have 08 operating system on it, it is not going to work with any of your software today. Period. That's it. They're incompatible. So you have a system of governance that is trying to organize its population under a rubric of completely antiquated ideas.
Well, I think there's a lot of antiquated, like the electoral Congress or whatever it's called. We don't have, it's not one person, one vote.
Yeah.
You know, it's electoral Congress. I mean, so the majority vote doesn't win. So I agree that there's a lot of things that don't make sense now. I think Parliament makes more sense than, you know, the kind of thing.
I mean,
we have.
the majority of 20% of voting for the president is not what I call a majority.
Okay. Right, that's true too. But I think you said something, you know, is there such a thing as too much freedom, and we have too much freedom in the United States? I really disagree with that. I think the concept of freedom in this country is really been trivialized to, you can get a Coke or a Pepsi. You can get a, you know, supersize or an extra supersize. I mean, freedom of choice has really been redefined as what you can buy in the supermarket.
Yeah.
And that's not
Yeah.
freedom of choice.
But choice is an illusion. Choice is an illusion. My favorite is the cereal aisle. My favorite is the cereal aisle. You take friends
Cereal
with
aisle.
cereal aisle, cereal,
Cereal?
grocery store, cereal, Wheaties,
Cheerios.
Cheerios, yeah,
The man is hungry. He keeps eating.
Captain Crunch. You know, no, you bring someone from another country, okay, and you take them to any store, and the first place I take them is the cereal aisle, and they look up, and there are hundreds, absolutely hundreds of choices of cereal. And there is not one bit of difference between one single one of them. It's all the same cereal, all made the same way, all owned by the same company, all under the disguise of being choice.
Right. That's just the point I was trying to make.
Okay, then we agree again. That's
But
the
that's
problem.
not choice.
That's not choice.
And
Right.
that's not
But
democracy.
That's not choice, it's not democracy, it's not freedom.
It's the
Right.
freedom to consume.
Well, that's how we save the economy.
Yeah.
If any of you want to know how to save the economy, take your credit cards and max them out. Absolutely. Spend money as much as humanly possible. Get
Adopt
into
a
debt,
pet.
get your parents into debt, your brothers and sisters into debt, get married, get them into debt, get your partners into debt. Get into debt, and you'll be like the perfect patriotic American citizen. And you might save this economy. You never know. At least California.
I think they said that about Victoria Beckham. They were like, oh, well, she's shopping. On that note, should we open up to questions from the audience? Yeah.
We like each other too much, so it's, you know.
I know.
It sounded like I was curious when you were talking about how we can penetrate the psyche of people, how can, with images, because we've been anesthetized by the accumulation of violent images over decades and decades and decades. And then the first example we brought up where the pin pricked it was the mix of the iPod and the off-grid, which made me think of Robert Heineken's political gesture, his agitational propaganda gesture, where he put atrocities of Vietnam War in porn magazines and various Hollywood newsstands, and porn magazines and fashion magazines, so people would be looking for porn and then they'd get an atrocity, and so forth. So it was by shifting context. And so it seems since corporate America, or the corporate, I'm not going to say corporate America, I'm going to say global corporate, or corporate global, has shifted or defined the groundwork or the definition of freedom or what have you, then maybe it's then how does one use that to turn it on itself. So maybe it doesn't require a more violent branching up of spectacle, but just a greater shift in context.
Well, I'll tell you some of the things that really inspire me as far as the new media now, and that's some of the political flash mobs. And if you go on YouTube and you type in St. Francis Hotel and Lady Gaga, okay, there was this, and it's a couple of years ago already, but there was the St. Francis Hotel was trying to break the union of its employees. And so a group of union musicians, all dressed up in suits like they belonged in the hotel, they go to sign in to the hotel, and then all of a sudden somebody yells out real loud, "Stop! You can't stay here. It's a bad hotel." And all of a sudden they break into Lady Gaga's Don't Get Stuck in a Bad Romance, but Don't Get Stuck in a Bad Hotel. They all have these huge instruments. They're doing this choreographed thing. Everybody's kind of like in shock. Somebody's videotaping the whole thing. The whole thing's done and over in like a minute, 2 minutes, and they're gone before they call security. But then that's seen by I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of people on YouTube, and it was funny. I mean, we're really missing humor. Humor is one of the most subversive tools we have. It was funny. It was clever. It was unexpected, and I can't hear Lady Gaga's song now without thinking of that demo. And those things are happening all over the country, all over the world.
But because I agree with Todd. I mean, in terms of, one borrows from the other, right? I mean, it's constantly happening through advertising and art. I mean, art does something, advertising bites it. Advertising does it a little bit better because they have a little more money, and art bites that, goes back and forth. The same happens to do, I think, what Todd is referring to is the same thing happens in terms of political spectrum, political agenda, political spectacle, the ability to tug of war over a particular set of ideas. But I'm going to go back to something that you said in terms. I agree. I think the flash mob. I think anything electronically, flash, all this stuff is fabulous, but it's pointless. It's necessary to be done. But it's pointless for the same reason that you suggested earlier, which was during the before, I don't remember if it was the first or second, I think it was the second Gulf War, there were more protests, major protests in more cities in the world.
40 million in one day.
That's right, than had ever happened in the history of this planet, and it did zilch, zero, nothing, nada. Nobody cared, nobody looked, nobody noticed, because you know what happened? It's the same as the battle for Seattle. Is it a great story? Sure it is. I break a window downstairs. The people in the penthouse are making the same decision whether you break the window downstairs or not, whether you agree or you don't agree. So I would actually take Todd's suggestion and I would amplify it about exponentially. In order for someone to pay attention, what you need to do is you cut off their electricity.
Or they cut off sit it in a freeway, but then you go to jail.
No, it's really simple. You cut off the electricity for California for 1 week. And I guarantee you, people are going to have a very different opinion about the way things work. You cut off gasoline, period, for 1 week. You shut down every grocery store in this country so that there is no access to any food at all. You will change. You have to, something out of the ordinary has to happen before anyone in this country is going to care. Because you know why? Because I can go to the student center here and eat all I want. I can get into my Prius and drive home for $3. I mean, I lack for nothing. There is not what's the problem here? Who's got the problem? We live in the empire. Okay. There is no problem for me right now. Everything's good.
Okay, I have major disagreement with you.
Good. That's what I
Fine,
was
right,
hoping.
okay. You were hoping, right? Oh, you're trying to be outrageous, and I took the bait, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, you know, it's,
Well, I, obviously, from, things you've heard, I've spent the majority of my life trying to make the world a better place than when I found it.
okay, well, I mean, we,
Okay, wait. And I absolutely believe that unless everyone in this room and beyond this room, anybody who is awake and concerned, if all of us don't try to make the world a better place than when we found it, it's going to get a whole lot worse, a whole lot faster.